My name is Greg Hayes, host of Nceptive Entertainment Studio Sessions. However, for this show, we are changing up the normal format in order to bring attention to and increase awareness about a rare autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis, or MG. MG is a neuromuscular disorder that causes the weakness in the skeletal muscles, which are the muscles that your body uses for movement. It occurs when communication between the nerve cells and the muscles become impaired. And there are two reasons that we at Nceptive are using this show to have this discussion. The first reason is that the founder and president of Nceptive, Glenda Thomas, was diagnosed with this disease back in 2014. The second reason is that Glenda is also the coordinator for the 7th annual New England Walk for MG that will take place on May 4th, 2019 at Castle Island in South Boston. It is our hope that this video will help spread the word about MG and that we can get a great crowd to walk on that day. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the show Glenda Thomas. Glenda, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Greg.
Good to see you here too. Now tell me a little bit about what this disease is and just give me some more information about the disease.
Well, myasthenia gravis is a disease that affects every muscle in your body. For me, it affected my vocal cords, it affected my core muscles. My biggest complaint was about the weakening of the neck muscles. I had the droopy eyes. I had my baby finger. I could not raise it up. It would always be down. You just being able to lift and to stand up and walk. Everyday living activities became a challenge.
Okay. And how were you finally diagnosed? How did you figure out that that's what you actually had?
Well, you know, that's an interesting story because I was the caregiver for my mom who had Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And so I would take her in to see her neurologist. Mm-hmm. And he kept, as well as he would observe my mother, I didn't realize this, but he was observing me. And one of the things that he noticed is that I had droopy eyelids. Mm-hmm. So he had said to me, there's a neurological cause for droopy eyelids. I didn't pay a lot of attention to this because I go see my PCP on a regular basis. I have my eyes checked like every 6 months. So I discarded what he was saying was the neurological cause, and I had my eyelids lifted.
Now what is that process about?
Well, that's really just having your eyelids raised and lifted. It's surgery. Mm-hmm. So that was a whole nother thing because not only now, because of the MG, the muscles that were being impacted, I ended up developing a chronic dry eyes case. Mm-hmm. But fast forwarding, I recovered from that, but I still had this droopy neck. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the droopy neck was my biggest complaint because when it comes around to eating, I would actually hold my head up to eat. Mm-hmm. Like this because, again, my neck would droop or I had to be like this. I couldn't tilt it. Mm-hmm. Shopping. You know, you want to read the prices on something. You want to look at something on the lower shelf. Again, I couldn't angle my neck to be able to do that. So I went through physical therapy for 2 to 3 months. The neck didn't work because I thought it was just a pulled muscle. Mm-hmm. So finally, after it not getting better, I went to the spine clinic at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, mm-hmm. and the spine doctor there is the one that suggests I see a neurologist. And I remember being on the Cape on vacation. I was down there by myself, and I get this phone call from my PCP saying I'm being suggested to see a neurologist. She says, I'm not going to make it an emergency, so you probably get an appointment 6 to 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. But when you come back, come in for a blood test. Did the blood test, and it came back for MG. It came back negative. But in the meantime, I also had reached out to my mother's neurologist and saying, what you thought may have been wrong with me might be wrong with me. And I credit him for the fact that I was quickly diagnosed from that point on because he says, Glenda, if you have any problem swallowing, breathing, go straight to the emergency room. But then do you mind if I share your medical records with my colleagues? And I said, no. And so he did. And so it was because of him that I was quickly got an appointment with a neurologist, and I was clinically diagnosed with having MG.
Now, how do they go about diagnosing you? What did they have to do?
Well, for me, it was one, doing another blood test. Two, it was going through and doing a CAT scan of my thymus, because a lot of times the thymus gland is the culprit of having the MG. And then they also did the EMG, where they stick the electrodes into your muscles, trying to get them to react to see. And for me, that was in my face.
Really?
So
Now, what does that test do? What are they looking for when they do that?
they want to see the muscles react.
Ah, okay.
Because if your muscles are not receiving the signal, they're not going to react.
Okay.
So for me, my muscles didn't react, and so they said, yep, you have MG.
Okay.
Okay, and the blood test came back and said not only did I have MG, but I had a rare form of MG, which is called MuSK, muscle-specific kinase. And that was how I was diagnosed. So that from that point, my doctor talked about the treatments that could be done for MG, which was, going through and do a certain, starting out with methadone, and then prednisone, the IVIG, and the other one was Rituxan. And the Rituxan, he says that for the clinical data has said that it was working pretty well as far as the treatment, but it was up to me to decide which route I want to take. And so that actually happens to be my miracle drug, and that's the reason why I am able to do all the things that I can today.
So you pretty much can function normally, or there's still some issues that you're dealing with?
So I can function pretty much normally. I have to pace myself more so, because if I get extremely tired, I'm not going to bounce back from being tired like everyone else. It's going to take me a little bit longer to recover.
Okay.
And hopefully I don't overstress myself to the point that it throws me off kilter totally.
Okay.
But, I started my treatment in 2014, and from 2014 to this past summer, I could really see that I was still getting stronger. Because one of the things that I didn't do for the first year is that I didn't go swimming. And all of a sudden last year when I got in the pool, I was able to swim from one end of the pool to the other end of the pool and enjoy myself. And it was like, wow.
Okay.
So that was where I talked about the core muscles not being strong enough.
Okay. So before we go into that a little further, what could happen to somebody if they don't realize they have this disease? I mean, what kind of things can occur?
Well, I mean, you can continue to get weak, and then you can go into what we call it myasthenia gravis crisis, and that's where you can't breathe and where you can't swallow. Because again, remember I talk about it affects every muscle.
Okay.
Okay, so that's usually when you end up in the emergency room. And one of the things that I do is that I wear the medical ID, because I want people to know that I do have myasthenia gravis, and that is maybe not something else. It could very well be my myasthenia gravis, that I'm in a crisis if that was to happen to me.
Okay. So you go to the emergency room and you have this crisis. Now, when you get to the emergency room, do they find that people are aware of this disease when you go to the emergency room?
It depends upon where you are.
Okay.
We're here in Boston, where we have, professional medical profession that is very well qualified. We have the best care in the world. You go to someplace else, you may not have that luxury that I feel that we have here. One of the places that I think about is that when I go to Virginia, I know that I can go to the University of Charlottesville, because they have doctors there that are trained and aware of myasthenia gravis.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I've met other MG colleagues that say they travel, a couple of hours because where they happen to live, they don't have the right medical care near them. So it really depends upon where you're living.
Okay. So now, is there, I know that we're going to go into a little later the fact that you're working in the New England area with an organization. So I'm assuming there's a national organization or an international organization that looks
There's
at
a
this?
national organization called Myasthenia Gravis Foundation of America. You can go to their website, which is it's mgfa.org.
Okay.
And it's a great site that they will identify all the support groups throughout the U.S. They'll give you the contacts. There's lots of information about myasthenia gravis. Physicians, if you need to find a physician, they can help you to find one there. A lot of resources, educational materials. One of the things that I've done lately is because when I've gone into my neurologist's office, I see all this MS material. But I don't see the myasthenia gravis material. So now I make sure that they get plenty of the material, so they have it in their waiting room. And actually, when I went to see my doctor earlier this month, he said, "Glenda, I have to let you know that we had a patient here who had myasthenia gravis, and they were surprised to know that there was all the support because they saw the material on the walk."
Okay. That's
So-
good. That's good. So, again, once again, for the layperson, what kind of things should people look out for if they have loved ones or friends that they think might have the disease, or what kind of things should people be aware of to be, just be cognizant of as they go forward?
For me, and we call this a snowflake disease. And it's called the snowflake disease because it affects everyone differently. So I'm not going to really talk about for others, but from my own personal experience, it's going to be the tiredness, the muscle fatigue. For me, I think it was really kind of earth-shattering to friends when they realized that I couldn't lift a 2 or 3 pound weight any higher than this, as much as I tried. Thinking back, I remember I was taking Zumba lessons, and I'm thinking the instructor must have thought that I was like one of the clumsiest people because I probably was not very well coordinated. Thinking back and looking at it, no, I didn't have the muscle strength, the tone to move my body in the way that you want it to do when you're doing Zumba. I couldn't do the bicycle. I couldn't get my legs up. So all of that's with muscle tone, your strength. If you're finding that you're trying to chew and you're getting tired or you're having difficult swallowing, those are all some of the things that you can follow up on. Again, looking back, I remember in my research coming across something that said, people with myasthenia gravis may tend to fall a little bit. And a few years before I was ever diagnosed, I remember walking into CVS and just tripping. I remember one day being in Boston, going somewhere, and I just tripped, and next thing you know, I'm on the ground. So, it could very well have been that my muscles were starting to get weak, and I didn't realize that was going on.
Okay. Now, what about young children? Is that something that you...
It can affect young children, babies as well. At the walk, there's been this young girl that I've seen over the years. Her family and friends come out and support her. She's going to be at the walk this year.
Okay.
And but it's been really interesting because I remember she couldn't do the walk, but they had like this car that she would be going around in. And she's older now. I think she's about 11, if I'm correct. But she's going to be at the walk again this year, and so we're looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Okay. So, young children, adults, have they figured out what's causing this disease?
No.
Really?
No.
No idea.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Now that they don't know what caused it, what's the prognosis now for some kind of a cure? Is there any hope out there?
That's one of the reasons why we're doing the walk.
Okay.
Because we are looking for a world without myasthenia gravis. You know, with the national organization, the physicians, the university, the pharmaceutical companies, they're all working on coming up with, I'm going to say today is a treatment, but in hope of that treatment someday, we're hoping that it's going to be a cure. So, because how we're being treated today and how we're going to be treated in the future is going to be totally different. One of the things that I discovered is that I think the first symptoms of myasthenia gravis was diagnosed in 1672.
1672.
Yeah, 350 years ago.
And
Or actually longer than 350 years ago, but you know, yes.
And what did they discover at that time?
It was the symptoms, but it wasn't until the end of the 19th century that they actually started to study it. They pulled together enough cases to start to do the studies. It wasn't until like 1960s when they came up with a proven treatment for myasthenia gravis.
And what was that?
And that is still the treatment that they're using today.
Wow. Now, what is that particular treatment, other than what you're taking something a little different?
Well, again, this was the methadone, and you don't have a lot of medicines out there today that has been identified as myasthenia gravis. You're finding that we're using other medicines that, like prednisone, is not just used for myasthenia gravis, but they use prednisone to treat us as well. So,
and did you try the prednisone?
I tried the prednisone. It didn't work for me.
What did that do to you?
I actually got worse when I was on the prednisone because again, I'm musk.
Okay.
So my doctor quickly weaned me off of that.
And then what did you do next?
And then I did what they call the IVIG infusions. I think I had 2 rounds of the IVIG infusions, and that's where you go into an infusion clinic and you're 5 days a week is 1 round. And so I did that twice. 5
days a week is 1 round. And then what happened that you finally found the, how do you pronounce it?
Rituximab.
Okay, and how did you discover that?
Well, actually, rituximab is what my doctor and I had agreed upon in the very beginning as the method. But in the time of trying to get it approved, we went through the other steps as well. And I really got very little benefit from any of that. As I said, with the methadone and with the prednisone, I actually got worse. The IVIG, it was minimal. The rituximab is a slow process. It takes months for it to take effect.
Okay.
And I remember probably 4 months after a treatment, I still said to my doctor, "You told me you could fix my neck, but my neck is still not fixed." I said they can make people walk that can't walk because of scientific and technology. So why can't you fix my neck? But gradually, with the rituximab, my neck came back. I was able to take my finger from here to bring it up here, but I couldn't move it by itself. When I moved my finger, I had to move all of my fingers.
Okay.
But now I can.
You got it. Okay.
So it's those things that you don't realize. The amount of time that it may take me to get dressed when I was at my weak point. You think about pulling a top off to get dressed or whatever, or putting your socks on. It was a challenge, and I just didn't share that challenge with other people because at that time I was the caregiver for my mom who had Alzheimer's. Okay. So my focus was on my mother.
Now, what about weight loss? Did you lose weight or anything in the process?
I did. I went from I probably lost about 35 pounds. I went from like a size 12 to down to a size 2 or 4.
Is that due to the difficulty in eating and chewing, as you mentioned earlier?
I think it was a combination. I think it was a combination of losing overall muscle strength, and then also with the fact that I would probably eat less. But I think it was also that my muscles were not as dense because I was losing that tone.
Right, right.
Because when I started taking the rituximab, I started gaining my weight back.
Okay.
So part of that I say was due to, maybe I was eating more now, but also I think it's that my muscles were getting stronger again.
So with the Rituxan, you mentioned that it's working.
Yes.
How often do you do that, and what do you go through when you go for that particular treatment?
For me, the Rituxan, I go once a year.
Okay.
And as much as I sometimes would like to think that I'm in remission, we just did a blood work, and the result says, no, you're not in remission. So I probably should stay at that once a year. Once before I went out about 17 months, and I started to feel the droopy neck coming back again. So I'm on an annual treatment of once a year. I do a double dose at one time. So I go twice in a given month.
Once a year?
Once a year.
Okay.
And because I have small veins, I'm usually there about 6 to 7 hours because I can't allow them to increase the pump to the max level.
Okay.
So it's a day.
But it works.
It works.
Now, you mentioned the blood test. What kind of blood test are they doing, and what does the blood test tell you?
You know what? It's testing the antibodies, but don't ask me to go much further than that.
Okay. But I know that there's certain levels that you try to get it down to or up to. Or
It's testing the antibodies. So
the number of antibodies. The antibodies are the ones that are attacking, or the antibodies are
you're
fighting it off.
technical.
Getting too technical. Okay. So now I know you're involved on the local level with the MG organization, and on the national level. Tell me about the walk and what you're hoping to accomplish by the walk. What you're trying to do.
So there's a couple things. One is for the walk, and actually even before the walk, one of the things I would like to talk about is the mere fact that the patient-doctor relationship is a very key when you have an illness that's not curable. Okay? I look at it that when you go in, you break your arm or something, you go into the doctor, they put it in a cast, you heal, you go about your business, you never see the doctor again. When you have an illness that is not curable, you have to have a doctor that you're comfortable with, one that you feel listens to you, that respects you, and that you have trust with that doctor as well. So my little side note is that when you're looking for the right neurologist for you, it's like trying to find the perfect mate. Because this is a long-term relationship.
Yeah, at this point.
You know, and I also encourage anyone, whenever you have a long-term relationship with a doctor, also have a succession plan. Because if that doctor ever decides to move, or if he retires, and you still need to be treated, it's finding that person that you're going to be comfortable with.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Good.
Now, as far as the local organization, the local support group is here. They have meetings throughout the year. You can go to the mgfa.org website, and you'll be able to find out when the meetings are. They're usually held at the Newton Wellesley Hospital.
Okay.
So it's a great opportunity to meet other people with MG, share your stories, learn about what's the latest with clinical trials or the medicines that's coming down the pike. So we always bring in different speakers to talk about things. We have a speaker coming up in June that's going to talk about nutrition.
Okay.
I think we have a pharmaceutical company coming in as well to talk about clinical trials.
Okay.
So, it's a great opportunity to
Good.
learn.
So if people want to try to get involved with the walk, you mentioned it's going to
So
be...
for the walk, you can go to New England. I'm sorry.
Well, we can actually put it up on the
But
on
I'm
the
going to say
screen.
you can go to the MGFA Walk and you find the Boston Walk.
Okay.
It's going to be held on May 4th,
Yep.
2019 at Castle Island. Registration starts at 9 o'clock. The walk with ceremony will kick off at 10.
Okay.
You can do a 1 mile, 2 mile, or 3 mile walk.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity to meet the different pharmaceutical companies because they will be there. We have 2 right in Boston, several that are in the Boston area that will be participating and sponsoring.
Okay.
Infusion companies will be there.
Okay.
The local support group will be there. And you get to meet other MGers, et cetera. It's going to be a really fun event. We've got Colleen Marshall is coming in to sing the national anthem as a
Okay.
part of our kickoff.
Okay.
We're going to have music. Unfortunately, we can't have some of the other things that we would like to have there that day because of
Sullivan's.
just the restrictions of the park. But it's going to be a great day.
Good. Well, Glenda, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and good luck with your pursuit for a long-term cure for this disease, and good luck for the walk. Of those out there who feel they want to participate, feel free to reach out to the websites. We'll make sure we have the website on the screen, so you can go there and hopefully join us for the walk. I hope to be there myself that day. Anything you want to say?
Have you signed up to join my team? I'm the Sunshine Bunnies.
Yes, I'm on your team.
Okay, you signed up already.
I'm
Okay,
signed up already.
All right,
and
so the
I'm ready to go.
Sunshine
I've
Bunnies.
been doing my stretching out. Anyway, we're about out of time, but I just want to take the time to thank you for being on, and good luck again with the walk.
And thank you.
All right.